Hey, is everyone excited for this Sunday? Who's excited for tonight? Revival is in the air. You know, a couple of us met up midweek and we had a little prayer meeting and we were believing for God to move in miraculous ways. We were believing that our church is not going to be the same after this weekend, that Norwich is not going to be the same after this weekend because of what God does in this service and the next service. Yeah? I'm going to jump straight in. It was my birthday recently. Woo. I say recently, it was like last month, but everyone likes to milk it, right? So, but it doesn't feel the same. Birthdays don't feel the same when you get older. And I'm not saying that I'm old before you all hate me, but on my birthday, Phil did send me a photo of a sunset in Barbados, and the text was something like, "This is a sunset, this is the sun going down, and represents the sun going down on your youth." But it doesn't feel the same, because I remember when I was a kid, when I was younger, I used to get so excited for birthdays, so excited for Christmas. I'd be sleepless with anticipation leading up to the big day. I never wanted to go to bed the night before, and I remember we were always banned from the living room where my mum was putting out the presents, or the kitchen where my mum always baked a cake the night before. And it was just so exciting. I was filled with this childish excitement for this magical day. And in fact, it's not just birthdays and Christmas that I was excited for as a kid. I got excited about a lot of things. I was that kid, the one who was I remember one time in primary school, I got told off for being too excited, which I don't think was very fair, but anyway, well, it's forgotten. But one thing that I do remember being super, super excited about as a kid was when we were growing up in Bali, we got to go to this water park. Now, this wasn't just like any ordinary water park. I saw, maybe it was Gemma or Annie shared something about the old Norwich Aqua Park. Does anyone ever remember going there? Yeah? Well, imagine this water park in Bali was like the Norwich Aqua Park, but better. This place was like the Disneyland of water parks. It was incredible. Actually, at the moment, it's the #1 water park on TripAdvisor in all of Asia. This place was the real deal. And it was so exciting. The prospect of going to this place was so exciting. You know, we didn't get to go often. It was like on a birthday or something like that, a special occasion. But every time we would go, I would get so excited. Have you ever had that childish excitement before? Do you remember what it was like to not be able to sleep because you couldn't wait for the next day? Maybe it was a trip to Disneyland or getting a puppy or whatever it was for you guys. Do you remember what it was like to be so excited you could not sleep? Anyway, I remember one of the last times that we ever got to go to this place, this water park. And we were going with some family friends. We'd known them for forever. Their children were the same age as me and my siblings. And we were going to this place, and I was so excited. We got our passes, we got through the doors, and we were setting up base camp next to one of the 6 swimming pools. And I was buzzing. I was so excited, and I couldn't wait for my mum to let me go off and enjoy the park. And after the 17th layer of sun cream, she finally let us go. And I called out to my siblings and our friends. I was like, "Hey, let's go. Which ride do you want to go on first?" But to my amazement and my shock and my horror, the kids of the family we were going with, they just couldn't be bothered. They weren't excited. They didn't have any enthusiasm. All they wanted to do was just swim in the pool that we had just set up next to. Guys, these kids had a pool at home. I don't know what was so special about this pool. It was exactly the same. But they weren't even excited to be there. And the thing is, I realized later on, my mum told me that they got to go more often because they had a season ticket. And the fact is, they had lost their wonder for the water park because they had become so familiar with the place. They got to go there all the time. It wasn't special, it wasn't fun, it wasn't exciting as it used to be. They had lost their passion and love for this incredible place. And I know this is just a fun little story, but I wonder, is it the same for those of us that are Christians in the room? We've forgotten how exciting it is to be a Christian. How exciting it is to be a part of church, to be a part of the community, the purpose that we get in building the church. Dare I say, we've even forgotten how incredible the miracle of salvation is. And I know for those of you like me who have been to church 1,000 times, you know, you're in church on Sundays, midweek for team nights, on Saturday meetings. We've been doing this our whole lives. I know some of you probably still remember sleeping on the back of, on chairs at the back of an auditorium when you were a kid. Being able to sleep through that kind of noise is impressive. It's a life skill there, but I know that some of you, like me, remember that when your mum dragged you along to prayer meetings or church camps. You know, we know what we're supposed to do, right? Like serve in one service and worship in another, but I know in reality it's often serve in one service and, oh, hey, we're a person short. Do you mind jumping on team tonight? Are we bored of the motions? Because are we getting bored of the motions because we have a season ticket to this thing called church life, and now it's lost its magic? You know, maybe you've just started coming to church and you're in the early stages of getting excited, or getting passionate about church, and you see some of these people who seem to have been around forever and they're still so excited about church, and you're thinking in your head, how can they possibly still be excited to do the same things week in, week out? How do they maintain that excitement? Or maybe you used to go to church and something happened that made you question why you spent so much of your life building this thing called church. You know, why did you spend so much of your effort and your energy instead of focusing that on yourself and your own life? You know, the longer we spend in church, the easier it is to get bored, disinterested, offended, bitter, and cynical. And regardless of where everyone in this room stands in terms of faith, I hope that, you know, what I talk about today can apply to you even if you've never been to church before, or even for those people who wouldn't call themselves Christians. And I know that I'd be lying if I said that this only applies to some people in the room. You know, the ones who always get negative about everything. You know, those people who are just a drain on your life, right? No, I think that everyone in this room has the opportunity to lose excitement. Everybody in this room has the opportunity to lose passion for church. And I think it's even easier if you've forgotten why you got excited about church in the first place. See, the passion for the house of God can fade. Excitement can diminish in the face of familiarity. I don't think it's something that some people are immune to. Because I believe that in the absence of excitement and passion, boredom, cynicism, and discontentment lead to disconnection. Disconnection from church, disconnection from fulfillment, disconnection from purpose. So what do we do when we feel like we're losing our excitement? See, the church is supposed to be glorious, magnificent, beautiful, exciting. You know, as Phil said last Sunday evening, it is through the church that God speaks and acts. This is the God who created heaven and earth, who created every single thing that you can see and touch and hear and feel. The God of the universe speaks and acts through the church. Sorry, I've lost where I am. This page. He speaks and acts through the church. And I'm not talking about a building, right? God doesn't speak and act through this warehouse. I'm talking about the people. The people are the church. That means we are the church. That means you are the church. That means you are the church. That means you are the church. And I love the passage in 1 Chronicles 22 in the Bible where it talks about King David's preparation for building the temple of the Lord. It reads like this in verse 5. It says, David said, "My son Solomon is young and inexperienced. The house of the Lord, the house to be built for the Lord should be of great magnificence, of fame and splendor in the sight of all the nations." See, David was building a physical building to house the Ark of the Covenant. But this is a picture of what the modern day church should look like. It should be of great magnificence and fame and splendor in the sight of all nations. See, David was David was so invested in building the house of God that he invested huge quantities of his own personal wealth and time into preparing to build the house of God, even though he knew he wouldn't even get to see its completion. See, David had a passion for building the house of God. So, okay, like, this guy was excited, but why should we be excited? Why should the church be glorious and magnificent and beautiful? Why should it be exciting to us? Well, we're closing up on our preaching series called Why I Love My Church. And I know we've covered loads of different reasons of why we love our church and why you should love our church, why you should love your church. But I want to talk a little bit about the reason why I first fell in love with this church and continue to love it. You know, the reason that I'm so excited for church, the reason why I spend long days and late nights building church, the reason that I eat, sleep, breathe, dream, think church, is because I've been captured by the vision. If you want to read it, we have a long vision statement on our website, and you can check that out, but condensed down to a sentence, our vision, the vision of Proclaimers, is to see the salvation of our city. To see the salvation of our city. What a bold, outrageous, ridiculous, seemingly unrealistic vision that is. What, like the whole city, or maybe just part of it? You know, like a little suburb would be fine, right? Or maybe like a church of 1,000 would be pretty cool. So that's a more realistic vision. No, the salvation of our city. And some of us have been around so long that we've become numb to how incredible that statement is, to how powerful that statement is. The salvation of our city. That is why I've given my life to building this church, and it's not just me. It's the reason why so many of us in this room strive to make Sundays excellent. It's why so many of us are so generous with our time. It's why so many of us are so generous with our talents and our resources. It's why we flow together with such a diverse group of people, even though we know we might get annoyed sometimes. It's why we serve on teams. The salvation of our city is more than just a catchy slogan. It's not a marketing ploy for engagement for our volunteers. It is the foundation that we are building this church on. Because when we start to feel tired or worn out, or tempted to take it easy, when we start to feel the excitement fading, we can remind ourselves that the salvation of our city starts with one person at a time. We do it all for that one person who found peace in the midst of anxiety, the one person who found joy on the other side of heartbreak, the one person who found hope in the midst of the darkest of situations, the one person who found healing even though the doctors were baffled, the one person who found wholeness after a lifetime of brokenness, the one person who found community even though they were lonely, the one person who found purpose when they felt they were lost, the one person who found the miracle of salvation through Jesus because of what we are doing through this church. The salvation of our city starts with one person at a time. And the thing that we need to do, the first thing that we need to do when we start to lose our excitement and our passion for church, is we need to remember why we fell in love with church in the first place. The vision, the vision, the vision. The vision that we are building a church to reach every corner of our city. And if we are to do that, then the vision of our church needs to saturate every fiber of our being. It needs to influence every decision that we make. You know, I think the early church were great examples of how you can live a vision-led life as Christians. The early Christians carried out the vision with such passion. These guys were all about building church. They met in the temple daily and then at each other's homes. Let me say that again. They met in the temple daily and then at each other's homes. They met in the temple daily and then at each other's homes. How challenging is that, guys? If you want to be part of what God is doing, you've got to be present. And maybe some of us, we need to take that into account when it comes to all in or all team weeks, or when our leaders are trying to gather us together to push forward to the next level, to move our church forward. If you want to be part of what God is doing, you need to be present. These guys were in church every day. They ate, drank, slept, dreamt, thought of church all the time. They gave their time and their talents, and they gave freely because they built their lives and their priorities around building the church. In fact, I love this passage, but these guys gave huge amounts of their personal wealth and possessions away to the poor. In Acts 2:45, it says, they sold properties and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Why would they do that, man? Like, why? Surely being in church every day is enough. Why have I got to give away my possessions and my wealth? Weren't they worried about losing out? But that's my money. I've been saving that for my new car. You know, God, that's mine. Or I really need to put in a new kitchen. God, you can have this part, but that chunk of money is mine. What if they didn't have enough for themselves? Well, in Matthew 6, Jesus told them, Matthew 6:25, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is life not more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they are? Can any one of you, by worrying add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that even Solomon in all his splendor was not dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? What shall we drink? What shall we wear? For the pagans run after these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. See, the early church, they knew that they didn't need to worry about lack. They weren't concerned about the prospect of lack, because Jesus had told them himself, but seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. These guys were so dedicated to building the church that not even the fear of death could stop them. Being fed to lions, burnt at the stake, being crucified could not kill their excitement or passion that the early Christians had for church. I want to hit you with this. The early Christians proved that passion is not killed by pain or hardship or lack or fear of death. Now I'm going to just punt out in the dark here. I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, that none of you have ever been in danger of being fed to lions or being burnt at the stake. So I'm going to rephrase that in a softer, more relatable way that we can understand in our context of today. Passion is not killed by serving too much in church, or spending too much time in church, or going to too many meetings, or giving up too much of your free time, or giving away too many of your resources or finances. You see, for the early Christians, it was actually tough. They were persecuted. They were even killed. Yet they continued to persevere in their goal to build the church that Jesus commissioned them to build. So how do we maintain that passion and excitement for building church, for building the house of God and carrying the vision? Well, the first thing that I think we need to do is to be vision focused. We need to be vision focused. Your excitement and passion for church will fade when church and the vision we carry is no longer your priority. See, passion is found where you place your priorities. Or maybe how Phil would word it, your priorities precede your passion. And I didn't make this up, it says it in the Bible. In Matthew 6:22, for where your treasure is, your heart will be also. For where your treasure is, your heart will be also. Your priorities precede your passion. And the early Christians maintained their excitement and passion for church, not because church played the type of worship music that they liked, or because church made them feel good inside. or because, they got to hang out with their friends, or because they were focused on, what do I get out of church? The early Christians maintained their excitement and passion for church because they chose to live vision-focused lives. In Hebrews 12, it says, 1-3, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down on the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you would not grow weary and lose heart. The Bible tells us that we should throw off everything that hinders us and run with perseverance the race set before us. Guys, I think that perseverance is the determination to not let your emotions cloud your convictions. Perseverance is the determination to not let your emotions cloud your convictions. And I believe that perseverance is fueled by passion. And passion and excitement are more than just emotions. Passion and excitement is about something, about anything. It's a choice. And we need to choose to be passionate. We need to choose to be excited. There are times when you're not going to feel like coming to church. And there are going to be times when you feel like, I don't want to accept that PCO request. There are going to be times when you don't want to speak to anyone new in the atrium. But we must remind ourselves that we can choose to be excited. Yes, I want to be a part of building this church. We can remind ourselves that we are motivated by the cause of Christ, the salvation of our city, one person at a time. So the first thing that we need to do is to be vision focused. And the second thing is to give everything. Whoa, 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 whoa. You didn't say anything about giving everything. You just said, I needed to make church a priority. What's this about giving everything? But for the early Christians, giving everything literally meant everything. They were willing to die for Jesus, for being a part of this thing called church. For them, giving everything meant giving their life. In Matthew 10:39, it says, if you cling to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for me, you will find it. Too many of us read that verse and we stop where it says, if you give up your life for me, and we're like, whoa. Nuh-uh. Too many of us are focused on what we stand to lose by giving our life to church. Well, if I serve on this service, then that means I won't have had a service off this month. So I can't make all in. Tuesday nights, I had a long day. I'm just going to, relax. Bit of me time. Why should I tithe? That's my money. I earned it. Shouldn't I be able to spend it how I want? When it comes to giving God our all, too many of us say, we're like, God, you can have everything. And we stand there and worship and we're like, God, take everything. Take all of me. Oh, just not that bit. That's mine. That bit's mine. You can take everything else. We're like, God, use us, use me to push your kingdom forward, to build your church, but only up until this point. Are you treating the call of God on your life like a negotiable job contract? Well, let's see here. Saturdays. I can't do Saturdays. I don't work Saturdays, so yeah. Sorry, no, can't make that. And it's a bit of a busy schedule, God. Did you see? Brooklyn Nine-Nine just came out on Netflix. Do you not know I've got stuff to do here? But God wants to use you to build his kingdom on earth. But can I tell you that God cannot bless your good intentions? He can only bless what you're willing to do. Some of us have £1 million dreams with a £100 work ethic. But if you love the vision of the church, and if you love what it stands for and everything that it does, and if you want it to grow, if you want to build it, then you have to put in the work. And you have to put in the effort. And you have to put in the time to see it happen. If you want to be a part of what God is doing, building his church, then you have to be sold out for it. We see the call of God on our lives as something that only needs part of us. But in fact, the call of God on our lives needs our whole lives, not just our church lives. Being sold out for the vision does not mean spending every waking hour doing jobs for church or being in this building, this space, every single minute that you're free. That's not what it's about. It's not about serving on every single team possible until you're burnt out and you're pretty much dead. Church is not something that you do. Church is the people. You are the church. So when you leave this building, you're still at church because you are the church. I know in this day and age, right, everyone just buys stuff online. But have you ever bought something from an unenthusiastic salesman? They're the worst, right? Like, why are you even doing this job? Do something else. It's impossible to buy into the product when the person selling it to you hasn't bought into it themselves. And it's the same with church and with Jesus for us as Christians. Being sold out for a vision validates the vision. You've got to give your best, your first, your everything to God, and God will bless you in return. God will give you purpose. God has already given you purpose. You just need to step into it, and you'll find life. As I conclude, I want to read out this quote I heard on a video. I think it was by Camilla White of Hillsong Paris, and it says this: when the Christians get excited, the decisions to follow Jesus start to flood into the house. And could it be that our excitement and passion for church has a direct correlation with people encountering Jesus? Could it be that our conscious decision to renew our excitement for Jesus and building his church could impact someone's eternity? See, I've decided in my heart that I'm going to stay excited about building church, and I'm going to stay expectant about what God is going to do through us and through this church, through me. When it comes to church, do you feel obligated or do you feel excited? Because only one of those is going to build church. I look out across this auditorium and I see so many people whose lives have been transformed by Jesus, by the power of Jesus, because of what we are doing in this house. Because a group of people decided to let God use them to build something bigger than themselves. I want to challenge you. When you see empty chairs around this auditorium, what do you see? Are you vision focused, or do you just not notice anymore? When you look at the empty chairs in the auditorium, do you see them filled with your friends and your family, the people that you've been praying for to come along to church? Are you just going through the motions, or have you decided that I love my church and I'm going to build this thing no matter what? You know, imagine when this church service finishes and we all go out to do whatever we're going to do, but we take with us our conviction to be vision focused, to let the cause of Christ influence every decision that we make. Imagine how people will take note because of what we've decided to choose to be excited about, that we've decided to choose to be passionate about the church that we love. You know, they will ask, why are you so positive all the time? Why are you so excited about church? Why are you so enthusiastic? You know, people do take note of other people's enthusiasm. So let's make sure that we're the people that are enthusiastic about church so that people can take note of us. Our enthusiasm for Jesus, our enthusiasm for how God can transform lives no matter how broken or how wrecked they seem, is why people are going to take notice. Because maybe noticing your unwavering love and passion for Jesus and his church becomes the start of someone's journey to meeting the loving, caring God that wants to know them, that wants nothing more than a relationship with them. See, the early church was so motivated by the cause of Christ, so sold out for the vision, so excited to build church that they decided that it was a cause worth dying for. that it was a cause worth dying for. And the same cause and the same vision, the same excitement is what drives our church today. We have a cause worth dying for. And if it's worth dying for, then I believe it is worth living for. If it is worth dying for, then it is worth living for. And if it is worth living for, it is worth giving for. And if it's worth giving for, it is worth being generous for. And if it is worth being generous for, it is worth being tired for. And if it is worth being tired for, then it's worth being stretched for. It's worth being uncomfortable for. It's worth sacrificing for. It is worth being excited for. It is worth working for. We have a church worth living for. And I think that's something worth getting excited for.